The Institute of Risk Management, India affiliate presents Decoding the Gig and Influencer Economy, Risks and Opportunities.
Imagine it's 1925 and you're sitting in a lounge listening to a live jazz performance by a group of musicians. That was the most common form of gig back in time. And these short-term engagements or performances have been around for centuries, with musicians, artists and craftsmen taking on gigs long before the term was popularized. But today, 10 million Indians are engaged in contractual work as delivery executives, business advisors, web developers, translators, or project-based workers in any discipline. There's also this creator economy where over 80 million Indians are working as digital content creators, so-called as micro-influencers or influencers in a range of sectors such as finance, fashion, travel, music, and a lot more. Now, the frustration of a traditional 9-to-5 desk job, along with an aspiration for multiple sources of income, coupled with this exponential proliferation of technology and social media, have made gig workers, creators and influencers realize that the need to work for a single employer or be on their payroll is no longer the dream career. In fact, today, the gig and influencer economy in India possesses immense potential as the government and India Inc. increasingly recognizing this sector as a vital engine for job creation and economic growth. But as they say, opportunity and risk come in pairs. So this sector is equally vulnerable to a range of risks. In this context, here's welcoming all of you to this panel discussion on Decoding Gig and Influencer Economy, Risks and Opportunities by the Institute of Risk Management, India affiliate. As the world's leading certifying body in enterprise risk management exams across 140 countries, this special episode underscores our unwavering commitment to driving thought leadership in every sector and every discipline. Let me now welcome the experts on our panel. Joining me in today's discussion are Sarthak Ahuja, who's an ISB Gold medalist, investment banker and educator, Niyati Mavin Kurve, co-founder of Abhi and New, Ain Norul, who's a seasoned risk leader and advisor to IRM India, and Aman Kultia, who's the founder and CEO of the A-List Club. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me in today's discussion. Ain, let me start with you. You know, the projection of the number of gig workers by 2030 is going to be about 25 million. And according to a recent survey, 8 out of 10 companies are now preferring to explore gig workers on a contractual basis. How are you seeing this transformational impact on India Inc. or corporate India? What are some of the emerging unknown risks that one should really consider?
What we are seeing currently is that the entire gig workforce is significantly expanding. Along with the gig workforce, the entire ecosystem, right from the gig platforms to the technology behind it, the regulatory environment around that, as well as how the companies are engaging with the gig workforce, these have been really expanding at a rapid speed. Currently, there are more opportunities that are available for the gig workers more than ever. The companies are engaging gig workers across all the functions, could be from operations to logistics to legal, HR, finance, some of the legal, IT, etc. Some of the top risks to consider would be one, definitely the regulatory environment. With the evolving regulations around it, definitely aspects around classifications of the workforce, aspects around the fair compensations, benefits to the workforce, be it in terms of the overtime, insurance, etc.,
right,
needs to be carefully looked at. Apart from that, given that a lot of gig workers are connecting remotely, there are risks from a cyber security point of view which needs careful considerations. Companies are sharing their confidential information and providing access to the gig workers.
With the data privacy.
So the data privacy and the data security becomes an important aspect to look at. There are reputational risks also that are worth considering, not just in terms of how the gig workers are performing their duties, but also in terms of how companies are handling their own gig workers, right? So these are all the relevant risks for the companies to proactively identify and then manage, right? So those would be my initial thoughts.
I think I wish I could do a crystal ball gazing exercise with you at some point to see what are the black swans or grey rhinos in this area. But Aman, let me bring you in at this point. You know, you're building one of the largest communities for creators and influencers. And traditionally, if you see the whole career landscape, one would want to become a doctor, lawyer, pilot, chartered accountant, or so on and so forth. Are you seeing this as a great career opportunity for the Gen Z or even the Gen Alpha? What is your take on this?
I've foremost at the closest seen the rise in the world of creators and definitely seen a perception shift about this world of creator economy. I think creators are now finally being looked at as a viable career option that brings together loads of opportunities, whether it be as a career or as a part-time gig or something that you just do to get perks and access and some opportunities that facilitate your current lifestyle. But for sure, having seen the trends in the recent market and the future predictions based on these industries, I feel creator economy in general, influencers and the rise of influencers is something that is almost guaranteed in the coming years.
And what are some of the disciplines which is driving this demand? Any specific area where you're seeing creators thriving or influencers thriving?
Absolutely. I think it's a growth of social media platforms in general, plus the growth of usage of these social media platforms by the population. I feel post-pandemic, the online conversion rates, the online world, the online active user rate has all shot up. And because of the same, creators almost had to be born. Because these are essentially creator distribution platforms where content is distributed. So creators of that content had to be born, right? Hence, influencers are on the rise. As more and more these platforms come up, we're seeing domestic platforms come in. We're seeing international platforms increase their consumption rate and adoption rate within the current population. So it's because of this segment and this usage rate increase in post-pandemic, I feel influencers will grow.
So at this point, Sarthak, you're a brand strategist. You've been advising companies. I want to understand from you, from an influencer marketing standpoint, if you look at the average spend, 25 to 30% is now allocated towards influencer marketing from the total digital marketing spend. And if you look at the market size, it's going to grow up to about 3,500 crore. What is your view in terms of the brand and reputation risks that organizations are likely to face? Because, as and when you engage with influencers, there's a certain script, there's a certain contract, but then the downside is, are they complying with those contracts? Or like Ain mentioned, the code of conduct. Where do you see the role of reputation, brand in this whole space?
Sure, I think even for years, there've been sports people, there've been actors who've actually been brand ambassadors for big brands. And we've all seen cases, without naming any, to notice how a certain celebrity would have engaged in something which is controversial and a brand having pulled the plug on the brand ambassador contract. Now, I feel with the creator economy and with influencers coming in the fray, earlier a brand ambassador, which is a celebrity, is aimed to be picked to think that what would the ideal customer persona or the ICP really relate to. But if you think about it, everyone knows that the amount of incomes and lifestyles that celebrities have, the ICP actually doesn't. And today, the brand has an opportunity to actually pick an ideal customer persona and make them the influencer to actually build a lot more authenticity plus a great feedback loop. So I think with the greater risk of tying up with influencers or much smaller, you also get a more focused return on your spend, right? So on a trade-off between risk and return, this still is a positively correlated line as I would look at it. Apart from that, I think as they say that you diversify your risk by actually diversifying your portfolio, these days brands really have the option, rather than going with one celebrity, to take a bunch of that budget and allocate it across a pool of creators, which also means that if there is anything remotely controversial happening with a particular person, they can dial down on their engagement with that creator without really letting it totally impact the brand.
Okay, great. Niyati, you are one of the powerful person on this panel as a woman creator, and your story is pretty inspiring.
Thank you.
I want to ask you specifically from a DEI point of view, the diversity, equality and inclusion. What has been your story? How do you want to advise young women creators on breaking the stereotype?
So my advice to a lot of women who want to be content creators is that first, you're going to be subjected to a lot more criticism as compared to a man, and a lot of this criticism is going to be personal. They're going to come and criticize the way you look, the way you dress, the way you talk, and it's not necessarily, it doesn't have anything to do with you as a person. It's just the way people's, their own limiting biases are, because that's the thing about creating content on social media. it's the reactions and responses that you get are very less about you and your work. It's more about a lot of other people projecting their insecurities on top of you. So as a woman, you have to have a little bit of that thick skin. The other thing is you have to find a tribe where you actually find 3 or 4 of those women who will support you and push you no matter what, and you'll find them even when you're creating content. Stick to those people, stick to those women, and having that tribe will be the thing that pushes you through, because that's the backbone you'll have.
In fact, if you see the Niti Aayog report on the gig and influencer economy, which was released in 2022, there's a separate section on breaking the stereotype and social inclusion. Well, it's time for a break, but we'll be back with this dynamic group to deep dive into the intricate and intertwined risks that organizations, gig workers, and influencers will need to be prepared for in an era of constant change fueled by technological advancements or evolving business landscape.
The Institute of Risk Management India affiliate presents Decoding the Gig and Influencer Economy, Risks and Opportunities. The Institute of Risk Management India affiliate presents Decoding the Gig and Influencer Economy, Risks and Opportunities.
Welcome back to this special panel discussion on Decoding Gig and Influencer Economy, Risks and Opportunities by the Institute of Risk Management India affiliate. I've been speaking with Sarthak Ahuja, Niyati Marvin Kurve, Ain Norul, and Aman Kultia. Aman, let me come to you. You deal with, influencers, creators on a daily basis. Give us some ground reality on the risks that these individuals face.
The biggest risk I feel is financial risk. There is an constant fluctuation of income, so that leads to financial instability, whereby you cannot depend on an average monthly stipend that would be coming in that is more employed to a regular 9-to-5 job. So you have to be okay with the fact that some months would be which were seasonal months or festive months, whereby income looks good and you're extremely happy with the amount of money that's coming into your account regularly. But there could be months or days, and that could be prolonged periods, whereby you see almost no growth financially and you're barely surviving and covering your lifestyle cost. Also, the dependency on these technological platforms, they play a huge part in risk mitigation. Essentially, algorithms of these social media platforms that we're talking about are constantly changing.
Yep.
Now, as a creator, the amount of likes, comments, views, reach I get is directly linked to the algorithm the platform is supporting. Any change in algorithm directly impacts my personal reach and engagement. And it's the reach and engagement that actually derives my market rate. So any change there, which is not in my control, equates to my financial instability of sorts. So there's heavy level dependency. Also, we might have seen a case recently or in future where heavy dependence on one technological platform or one social media platform for your entire portfolio and your income could be wiped out with one government policy or rule, right? So diversifying your platforms in a way where your content and your audience is distributed amongst many will play a major part.
Sarthak, I want to come to you on this point. The financial risk which he spoke about is very interesting. I was speaking to a couple of influencers, and they were denied financial assistance because they don't have stability in income. As a chartered accountant and investment banker, can you give us some tips on how do you mitigate this financial risk?
I think a lot of it is 100% driven by the behavior of the person. Like I would say, the gig economy ends up creating a lot of opportunities which are short term, which end up making you a lot of money. What people do is give up on their full-time job or a more stable career or working as a contractual knowledge professional for these short-term gigs and money-making opportunities, and extrapolating that expectation of money creation for say years to come, and the actual lifespan is going to be much smaller. So I would say, even though you may find certain engagements to not be as profitable as a few other short-term contracts would be, don't give up on them entirely, because know that those are the ones which will actually give you stability and predictability in your income, which actually reflects very well in your financial statements as well when you go for a credit assessment to a banker. The second is from a living cost perspective. This was from an income point of view. From a cost perspective, it's very easy to increase costs on your lifestyle, but very difficult to bring it down later. So I think all the money that comes in, realizing that this is short term and it should be put towards an emergency.
Isn't that a requirement of staying in the industry?
I think it's a requirement. It's an aggravated requirement of being in this industry where For anyone else, you would probably give away these insights as this is behavioral finance and you need to behave in a particular manner, which is financially prudent. But it becomes all the more necessary for creators because a lot of them probably haven't gone through years of struggle of saving up to say a couple of lakhs or 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs, and suddenly you make that kind of money in 1 month. Your mindset tells you, I can splurge on this, let me splurge on this, not realizing that for most other people, and you could find yourself in that
And
spot.
how do you see this panning out for, delivery executives or some of the gig workers?
I think even for delivery executives, what is happening is that they see one platform trying to compete with the other to take away all of these delivery executives onto them with some short-term incentive. And if they jeopardize everything else that they've built, or they jeopardize on not really adding to their skill base, which is an active way of constantly earning money. If you're only spotting trends, you may be able to ride one wave, but possibly not every wave that comes after that. So I think with creators, with gig workers, know that every opportunity is short term. Build something which is long term, which could possibly be constantly upskilling yourself.
Niyati, talking about the risks of the gig workers and influencers, there's one important component about long-term sustainability. I've seen certain creators having mental health issues because they lose followers. So how do you stay relevant in an era of competitive change, technological advancement, or like he said, the algorithms changing? How does one really stay relevant and make sure that you're building something long term?
Your content doesn't get irrelevant, the content creator gets irrelevant. Or they decide to move away from whatever they're doing and transcend and work in other stuff. It's very important as a content creator to find your voice. And I know it's very tempting in the beginning to just ape whatever is trending or make videos on trending audios, or to figure out okay, maybe I can do 10 different transitions like this. But then that is not something that's going to give you long-term happiness, because these trends will come and go. And tomorrow if you put out some piece of content and doesn't perform because it's not on trend, that's going to cause a lot of mental health issues. So one of the risks, since we're talking about risks here, is definitely the risk of burnout, simply because a lot of creators don't manage their expectations well.
Yeah.
It's very important to understand that creating content is a lot like starting your own business. There is a certain amount of gestation period involved in this, and it's like throwing dice. You never know whether you're going to get 2 6s in the first try, or you'll get in the 10th try or the 100th try.
And there's no formula for
There's
that.
no formula. Your first video could go viral, but that does not guarantee your second video will. Your 10th video could go viral, your 15th video could go viral. For us, it was the 22nd video that we made when we started 100 Reasons to Love India that went viral. That was a video on eco-friendly Ganpati. And we thought that, okay, life is going to change, everything is different now, we got a lot of followers. But then the next video didn't perform that well, and we learned a very important lesson, that the up and down spikes are not enough. The spikes will continue.
So the risk of not being accepted, the risk of being trolled, the risk of being bullied.
The risk of being trolled is always there, but we have a 4-point system to deal with it. There are going to be people who are going to make personal attacks, like I mentioned before. So people who make personal attacks on your appearance are the ones you should never engage with, because they're the ones who have their own limiting biases. Then there are people who will just nitpick on a lot of different things. Those you may engage with if you want to. There'll be people who will give you constructive feedback, like, okay, maybe you can do this to improve your work, maybe your lighting can be better, your audio can be better. These people come with a very good intention, and you can engage with them wholeheartedly. And of course, you'll find your 97% silent base, 99% silent base, who are always there to support you, who will not comment on every video of yours. But if something touches them, then they'll pour their heart out with affection for you. So then those are the people you engage with all the time.
So this is about influencers and creators. Sarthak, I want to quickly bring you in. Speaking of the gig workers specifically, right? Do you think they need to be included in the mental wellness programs by the large corporates? Are you seeing that happening?
Absolutely. I think one common mistake people tend to make is they think of it from the perspective of Maslow's need hierarchy, saying that these people possibly just need to take care of money matters, and all of this related to mental health and depression is a first world problem of the top tier, which is so far from the truth. Which means the fact that these people don't really get a voice to put it out on public display on social media or in movies doesn't mean that they're not dealing with it. Which is why I was really happy to hear the other day about this one free helpline and a not-profit organization started about giving free on-call assistance to any woman who wants to call and get some mental health support. I think more such initiatives are really required in the country today.
Ain, let me come to you to kind of conclude this panel discussion. You know, the essence of a good enterprise risk management program is about the coverage or the scope of risk. Have you really looked at the risk universe? Have you brought in a 360-degree perspective? Are you seeing corporates include gig and influencer risk in their risk register? Is it part of the overall governance? Is it part of the risk culture? How are you seeing that change?
So, absolutely, I agree with you, Harsh. The risk management and a robust risk management framework goes beyond just the culture building and just the awareness, right? There are various different elements that needs to come together for it to be a holistic perspective. It could be about one, having a risk champions identified across the different functions. The responsibility doesn't lie with just the risk management functions. The responsibility lies with every single function within the organizations. Could be operations, could be legal, could be HR, and similar things. Apart from that, one, there has to be an acceptance to the change that's happening around us, right? And for that, there's a need to proactively identify those risks, make sure that there are deliberations and discussions and a continuous engagement with the people to identify what can go wrong, and then accordingly decide on the mitigation strategies. Some of the mitigations or the guardrails that corporates can build in could be with respect to the contractual agreements and the clauses that gets included.
Yep.
Strengthening the cybersecurity and the data privacy protocols and the measures that have been put in, having very clear protocols and policies with respect to how the gig workers are handled, what are their ethical behaviors that they are supposed to be handling, making sure that there is very clear requirements in terms of how we are going to be handling any scenario that may come up. So, it could include different conducting different scenario planning and handling the adverse publicity that could come up with this. So, those are the things that could be managed.
All right, on that note, thank you esteemed panelists for that engaging conversation. Delving into a subject like this can occupy hours, but today's discussion will surely drive the importance of building resilience in the gig and influencer economies through effective risk intelligence, stakeholder collaboration, as they said, and regulatory intervention. Thank you.
The Institute of Risk Management India affiliate presents Decoding the Gig and Influencer Economy, Risks and Opportunities.